What is your favorite? And that's why we had to put this sign up. Story. Near my old city, there was a street sign that roughly said, when translated, "Don't cross here, you could die." Eventually, it became, "Don't cross here, someone already died." Saw a sign like that near a waterfall on our honeymoon. It said something to the effect of, 15 people have died here after leaving the path and falling on the slippery rocks. Definitely got my attention. It really shines brightest when the number has been crossed out and replaced by hand. I was going to ask if the numbers in the sign were able to be flipped with each new death. It has been 0 days since a waterfall death. That's because they put the sign in the slippery rocks. Effective way to keep the streak going. Hey, what's that sign over near them slippery rocks say? One day I noticed that they had drained, cleaned, and refilled the pool at my apartment complex. A few days later I noticed a new sign on the pool area gate that said persons with active diarrhea or who have had diarrhea in the past 48 hours are not permitted to enter the pool. I live in Vancouver, where the incident happened, where the sea lion grabbed that girl and dragged her underwater and the grandpa had to save her. In the area where that happened there's a sign that says no feeding the sea lions, as a visual depiction. Haven't been back in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's still there. At the college I went to there was a sign on the men's bathroom in one building that said, "Please don't use your feet to flush the toilets," because some dude drop-kicked a toilet in an attempt to flush it. I've never laughed so hard reading a sign in my life. At a previous workplace. "Please do not put toilet paper in the urinal." With a graffitied addition, "No TP, just PP." I'm a little confused as to why this sign was needed. I work in an office and in the bathroom we have a sign that says, "Please don't flush printer paper, throw your divorce papers in the trash." Now every time someone in our office has to use the bathroom we say, "I gotta go flush the divorce papers." Back when I was a kid there was a roadside park we picnicked at where a guy chasing a frisbee jumped a fence, not realizing that those were not bushes on the other side, but the tops of trees growing from the base of a 30-foot cliff. So anyway, that's how that park came to have signs every 10 feet on the fence warning of the drop. Through my cousin who managed a restaurant for years. On the hostess stand at the front they had a sign that said, "We smoke our meats with premium applewood." A small bowl of the wood chips they used placed right in front of it. The amount of people who would take a wood chip and try to eat it were staggering. It got to the point they had to keep a bag of the wood chips in the cabinet of the hostess stand. People would sometimes put them in their mouth and spit it out embarrassed, and try to cover it up. Some would laugh and say I shouldn't have had that last drink. Others would turn around, double down, and try to give the saliva-covered chip to the hostess, then complain that these mints are disgusting. So there is now another sign beside the bowl that says, "Wood chips do not eat," in red letters. Makes for fun conversation every night for the hostesses seating people who are new to the restaurant. Unfortunately they still need to keep an extra bag of wood chips in the stand and people still think they look like a great after-dinner snack. Now when the double-downers complain the hostess just points to the sign and laughs. People never cease to amaze. The other day a woman was tanning in the middle of a shooting range. I think some new signs will be made. Jesus, what the hell was the range safety doing? Ready on the right? Right is ready. Ready on the left? Left is tanning. We had to place a "no hanging around outside" sign up because the teenagers did not know what "no loitering" meant. I work in private security. I once upon a time had to ask a group of people hanging out in a hospital parking garage to leave. They asked why. I said we had a policy of no loitering in the garage due to some issues we had been having with break-ins. Their response was, "We ain't loitering, we just waiting around." I had a friend in high school who thought loitering was just another word for littering. Which sort of makes sense if you know the area. There's a very specific accent to the area that I can't really explain. The words high tide is a good example though. It's pronounced hoy-toid. Like the center sound is a British pay attention oi instead of a hard I, so litter to loiter isn't as big a stretch as you'd think. He'd lived there all his life and I was from off, so I got to explain the difference. Weird day. Oi love pick datkin up dis roit airs a no loiterin areer. Someone shat in a urinal every block over the course of 2 weeks without anyone noticing. After it was cleaned a sign was put up saying, "Please do not put things in the urinal." The sign was promptly found inside the urinal. Was chatting with students in the lounge area when all of a sudden, we hear an incredibly loud bang. Turns out that another new student had been texting while walking to our center's demo room and totally missed the fact that the room's walls are all panes of glass, so she ultimately face-planted in front of me and my group. Not the first time this has happened, but this was enough to warrant a "Caution. Glass ahead" sign. At a seminar on new colostomy supplies, there was a sticker on the colostomy bag collar, the part your modified intestine sticks through, stating that the colostomy was not to be used for sexual pleasure. I don't know the backstory, but according to a doctor I know, it's disturbingly common for people to catch STDs in their colostomy hole because, well. I had to learn that, so y'all do too. How do I unlearn something? Just do what I do. Edit, I'd tell you but I unlearned it. People massively bringing dogs to the park, despite of a big "No Dogs" sign. The locals say the sign is too high, and dogs cannot see it. My husband and I moved into our first home. It was a completely renovated, amazingly cool house. We knew the previous owner flipped it, and it was a bona fide bachelor pad, leather bar, pinball machine, blue under lighting in the kitchens, bathroom, hot tub, the whole 9 yards. A few weeks after moving in, we noticed people kept stopping by the house asking for Alex. We told them he didn't live here anymore, and they always would ask if we had his new address. They were nice enough, but it was starting to get annoying. One Tuesday evening around 11 o'clock we were falling asleep on the couch and all of a sudden some guy strung out appeared in our living room. He opened the sliding door right next to us and walked in asking for Alex. My husband stood up and was like, "WTF, Alex doesn't live here anymore, tell all your friends," and the guy left. We learned the next day from our neighbors that Alex was the local drug kingpin in the area and frequently had his unsavory clientele over to pick up product here at all hours of the day, night. That weekend we put up a sign that said, "Alex doesn't live here," went out and got a massive Rottweiler. We named him Alex. Well, where the fuck did your dog live? My stepdad worked at a shipping yard and they had to put cylindrical tanks in one of 2 spots indicating whether they were full of gas or empty. So one day, the boss asks a guy to wield 2 signs, one saying "full" and the other saying "empty." This guy wasn't all there, and he did create the signs and showed them off to the boss. The first one was well made, "full," it said. The second one, "mount." They all found it so funny they kept it that way. There is a bad habit among the shop workers of my area at least. When an oxygen or acetylene bottle is empty, they take a paint marker and write "MT" on the tank. It's really obnoxious because those tanks get reused all the time, so when they come back full it still read "mount." We had one guy get written up because he took a wire wheel brush on a grinder to erase it. It was acetylene and it was very much full. Don't take power tools to explosive tanks, kids. It's a fucking dumb move. Idea, use chalk, it stays on while you need it but comes off easily. Shit. That is a good idea. Now I kinda want to go back to shop work just to steal this and be regarded as a genius. MT plus the date in chalk. We have a rule at our pool that in the sauna you can't exercise. One man consistently works out in the sauna. I used to go to a gym where a lady would regularly do naked yoga in the sauna. I guess she wanted to do hot yoga and the gym didn't offer it. There is a sign on the way to my grandparents' house that had a picture of a cow falling off of a cliff to a car. Because there is a cattle field on the cliff above the road. And at least 3 cows have fallen to there in an unlucky driver's death. I don't see what use the sign is though. Being aware of the potential for falling cows doesn't help you to avoid them. When you see an actual cow falling off the cliff, your first reaction will be to gawk at it. Well, look at that. It's a falling cow. The sign preps your mind to understand that cows can fall off the cliff above you, and may hit your car. When a prepared person sees a falling cow, they will react differently. Not necessarily a sign we put up, but worked with an assistant manager at Sonic who had poured degreaser in her drink and proceeded to drink it to claim that someone had tried poisoning her, and of course upon reviewing the infamous non-working camera system and watching her poison herself, every employee at that point had to sign paperwork stating we would not drink cleaning chemicals. Edit, I originally put Sonic, but it was actually Subway. I worked at Sonic afterward. So my family goes camping for 2 weeks every year. One year when I was young there was a sign that said, "All dogs must have leashes," and it had an image of a dog on a leash, with no one holding the leash. Keep this in mind. We're setting up camp and the forest ranger stops by and our dogs are walking around freely, not causing any issues, just sniffing around as dogs do. The ranger goes up to my mom and says, "Your dogs need to be on leashes." To which my mom points out they are wearing leashes. She calls them over and the leashes are hooked on but no one is holding them. The ranger is dumbfounded and says, "I think you're supposed to be holding it." She plays dumb and says, "Oh well, the sign didn't say or show that." My mother is a college-educated woman, she isn't dumb by any means, she knew what she was doing, and did it anyways because it was funny. The ranger leaves and we don't hear anything else. Fast forward to the next year. The sign was updated and had someone holding the leash of the dog this time. I wasn't there long enough to get the story, but years ago I worked at a temp job and this sign was up in the kitchen. The stories we write for ourselves are probably more entertaining anyway. Reminds me of when I was 5, decided it sucked to butter bread after toasting cause the butter is hard and doesn't spread well. Figured if put it on before it would melt into the bread as it got hot. I learned not to do that. Helps me be more understanding of my kids when they do stupid shit. Ah yes, it reminds me of this conversation. Dad? Not now, son, I'm on the phone. But Dad. It's a phone call from work. It's impor. I am on the phone. But there's a fire in the microwave. Fred, I'm going to have to call you back. I was the son. I, too, have fucked up a microwave. I dropped a TV remote into a sink full of dish water and thought, oh, I'll just stick this in the microwave for about 30 seconds. It should dry out and work just fine, right? No. Oh, and one more thing, if you guys ever have kids and one of them, when he's 8 years old, accidentally sets fire to the living room rug, go easy on him. They had to put up a large sign at a local nursing home saying basically don't let people out the door to outside without checking with staff. Evidently a resident, in a gown and wheelchair, asked a visitor to hold the door, with an alarm and a keypad, code to open for them, and the person did. The staff ran out and got the patient at the end of the driveway about to push out into traffic. The visitor actually said, I didn't know she wasn't allowed out. This is a second, third-hand story, so I DK the validity. I have heard of some retirement homes that will have a bus stop built on the sidewalk between the main building and the road. And it has a big sign saying bus stop on it. So if a person slips out, they often would get to the bus stop and then sit down to wait for the bus. Staff would keep an eye on the bus stop and round up anybody that was out there waiting for the bus. The real bus stop was on the street and you had to walk a little bit further to get to it. I feel bad for the lost elderly tourist who was rounded up at that bus stop and dragged into the nursing home. But you don't understand. I don't belong here. That's what they all say. Nice try, barrel. I work at the dining hall at my university and was cleaning the salad bar when I noticed a small fire coming from our toaster oven. After running to find my manager, we eventually put it out. Turns out some guy stuck a piece of pie in there with a paper plate and the entire thing bursted into flames. Please only put bread in the toaster became the new sign. My favorite mostly because it happened to me but not because it was a great experience lol. When I was about 6, we lived across the street from a park and my sister and I would go play over there all the time, of course. On this particular summer day, we had our best friends over, who also happened to be sisters. My best friend and I decide to go back across the street to get some popsicles, and my mother is across the street to supervise the crossing. This was a useless effort, because I had stepped between the cars parked on my side of the street to check if the coast was clear. I was too short to see over them, and I got hit by a car. I was in the hospital for a month because my skull was cracked for the second time in my life lol. Anyway, after that, they put up a sign that said, "Slow children at play." We moved shortly after all this, but it's still there, and whenever I pass it I am reminded that it's there because of me. If only you hadn't been such a slow child. Edit, really? You'd gild this? Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel, so that we can create more quality content in the future.